we're so fortunate to be here, have a little bit of freedom, a little bit of free time to discuss these important things in life. We've been working our way, in my own mind, we've kind of been working our way. I think this is maybe the 20th class, is that correct? 19th?
Yeah, like 18.
18th? But in one sense, we've been working for 18 lessons up till like now. Now we get into the stuff that to me is the most fascinating and interesting and significant. We began by defining yoga as a practice which empowers one to overcome the obstacle of the mind for the purpose of the self experiencing their own true nature. That's what yoga is. That we have a nature. That nature we defined as, well, we didn't define it, but it's defined in the ancient Sanskrit texts of Vedanta as Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. That's who we are. But are we experiencing that? Or are we going up and down? Are we experiencing happiness one moment, distress the next? Elation one moment, depression the next. Interest one moment, boredom the next. Are we going up and down? Are we out of touch with our true nature? And if so, how did we become out of touch with our true nature? And the answer provided is that it's because of the mind, because we identify with the ever-changing mind, that we go through the ups and downs when we are actually stable. And yoga is a practice which enables us to deal with the mind in one way or another so that it ceases to be an obstacle for the self, for the soul, to experience its own true blissful nature. And so we defined the nature of the self, we talked about the mind, and then we began talking about 4 different paths of yoga, each with a different strategy for how to address the mind. And when we understand that about yoga, we understand so much. It helps us pick up any book on yoga or yoga philosophy and make sense of it, because we can understand, oh, they're using these terms, they're explaining a particular strategy of how to deal with the mind. And once I can zoom in on that, I see where they're coming from. When they're speaking of yoga, they're speaking about it in this way. In Ashtanga yoga, they were speaking of yoga as a way to still the mind so that the self could experience its own true natures. In Jnana yoga, they're speaking of a way of analyzing one's inner world, analyzing one's desires through just like a cold type of analysis and removing whatever illusion is there. Discerning between what's real and what's illusion. Examining one's desires and basically cracking them, right, until there's none left and one's free. And then in Karma Yoga, the idea was to take the same analysis that's there, the same knowledge that's there in Jnana Yoga, but apply it while you're working in the world, rather than walking away from the world. Apply it as a filter through which you process your experience in this world, whether it's with your family, with your spouse, with your children, in your workplace, that you can use this yogic analysis even working in the world. Now Now we come to the 4th of the 4 paths. And we're going to, from here on out, we're going to go a lot into this because it's what's in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna calls the confidential Vedanta. And I'll get to that, not today so much, but we'll talk about this. That Krishna says, I'm sharing knowledge with you, which is confidential. He says to Arjuna, knowledge about the self, right? Most people don't pick up on this. Most people, their awareness is distracted in other directions. But those that are clued in, they begin to wonder about the nature of the self. But then Krishna says, I'm going to share with you knowledge that's more confidential, that's most confidential. And here he's speaking about something very special. What does he call it? Guyatamam Shastram, the greatest secret of all of the Shastras, of all the sacred texts. And what is that? Should I say? Or should we wait? We'll examine this. We'll go to the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where there's also the 9th chapter. But in that 15th chapter, he says that behind everything, behind the sun, behind the moon, behind the fire, behind the fire of digestion, behind everything that we see, and within the heart of every living being, there's the Supreme. And that Supreme is a person. This is what he says. He says, when you know that person, that intelligence that's behind everything that's moving in this world, when you know that person, then the natural response is that you connect, you feel love for that person within your heart. And he says, this is the greatest secret of all the sacred texts. This is the confidential Vedanta. So there's a lot to get into here. And we've been going for 18 days, and we got about another 18 or so left, something like that. We're about halfway through. But there'll be a lot to say on this subject. But I want to start, so in other words, today we talk about Bhakti Yoga. What is the strategy in Bhakti Yoga? Is it to still the mind? Is it to break the desires of the mind? In Bhakti Yoga, in a sense, we could say that the strategy is to harmonize the mind with the nature of the self. In other words, we could reprogram that mind. We can bring in content, just like if you have like an algorithm, right? Let's say you're on YouTube and clicking around on this video and that video, and then you notice those videos start to come up more, right? Once you click on one thing, oh God, it can be like, why does it keep sending me this stuff? It's because you clicked on it. You clicked on it once, you clicked on it twice, and now it's sending you all kinds of stuff. Is there a way to unfollow that, right? And reset the algorithm by clicking on stuff that's more like what you want it to be. And in Bhakti Yoga, the idea is I'm going to open up my senses. I'm not going to withdraw them. I'm not going to shut them down. I'm going to open them up, but I'm going to open them up to the right kind of content that is harmonious with my nature. That might be through sound, right? That might be through any of the senses. In the temple, it's through vision. It's the form, right? Through mantra, it's the sound. Through hearing the sacred text, it's the sound. We can engage our body, our mind, our words in bringing in content and refreshing the mind with this so that the mind becomes reprogrammed, refreshed. The algorithm is reset. That the mind, when that mind is entirely harmonious with the nature of the self, then the nature of the self can be felt underneath. Right? It's no longer this conflict. The mind and the self are now united. And another word for unity or union? Yoga. This is Bhakti Yoga. Right? So I wanted to start here. I have these two quotes. One is coming from a very popular speaker of today, and one is coming from a very ancient text. And first I'll read this. This is a quote from Sadhguru, very popular speaker. He says, we have given lots of significance. First, let me read the heading here. It says, love as psychological progression. When we speak of bhakti, we're speaking of devotion, we're speaking of love. Now, he's presenting love as a psychological projection. And I'll read his quote. We have given lots of significance to various psychological modes and moods that our intelligence takes. We can call it fear. We can call it courage. We can call it love. We can call it hate. But it is just different shades that your mind takes at different times. All of this is only a constant compulsive reaction to something around you. If somebody is nice to you, you fall in love with them. If somebody is nasty to you, you hate them. This is a psychological and social phenomenon. Love is not an existential reality. Okay? It's a very strong statement there. Now, he's not quoting Shastra, right? I see he rarely does that. He's just speaking his thoughts, where they come from. Is he representing some tradition or not? He's not saying, but he's sharing this is his idea. Love is not an existential reality. Underneath love is the real self. Love is something that's unreal, placed on top of it, and in order to get to the real self, you have to remove love, right? Along with hate, along with courage, along with fear, These are all just temporary, illusory impositions on the self. And you achieve self-realization when you get rid of them all, including love. Everybody with me? Right? That's an idea that's not foreign to Vedanta, that there's a school of Vedanta that's present things like that, and that would be called Advaita Vedanta. And it's also an idea that's not foreign to a lot of modern scientific theory, right? That all these emotions are just something that happened in the brain, right? And so then, therefore, love is just something, the chemical reaction that's going on in the brain. Now, if we go to, here on the right, we go to the Vishnu Purana. This is a text that is many, many centuries old, and according to the tradition, the faith is that this is part of the content that is eternal, right? It's a vibration that has existed forever. Just like right now in this room, everything on YouTube is just floating through the air. Everything on the internet is floating through the air. The yogis say that there's this Veda, that there's this knowledge that is always existing, always vibrating. And that if you have the right technology, in a sense, if you have the right yogic accomplishment, one can tap into it, download it, share it. And that's what the Vishnu Purana is, right? They call this apurusheya, the yogis call this. They say that this knowledge is not created by any person. It's internal knowledge that the sages can access and share. Vishnu Purana, right? Would you like to hear what Vishnu Purana says?
Yes.
You sure? Really?
Yes.
All right. This is a prayer to Lord Vishnu. It's shared by a sage named Parthasarta Muni. And he says, "O Lord, you are the support of everything," right? Everything is resting on one divine being. The three attributes, and don't worry about the language, we're gonna get into all this. The three attributes of Hladini, Sandini, and Samvit exist in you as one spiritual energy. But the material modes which cause happiness, misery, and mixtures of the two do not exist in you, for you have no material qualities. Vishnu Purana. Okay, let's talk about this. And let's go back. Many of you have been with us as we've been going through the past 18 or so days. We said early on that the way the yogis, that the yogis have a particular way of categorizing the world that we're living in. Just like scientists will break this world down into the what is it called? The elementary table, right? That you can break down. Okay, there's 100 and something or 200 and something elements that.
Periodic table.
Huh?
Periodic table.
Periodic table. Thank you. That's right. Periodic table. That you can break it down into all these. In other words, anything that we take, this microphone, this harmonium, we could find all the different elements that are in it. They'll fit into that chart, and this is a mixture of those elements. So we said that the yogis also have ways of breaking down the material world that we live in. And they would say that the very first thing they would do is break it into two categories. And what were those two categories? Who can say? Yeah, material and spiritual. In Sanskrit, we might say Prakriti and Purusha, right? There's material energy, which is constantly which is non-conscious. It has no awareness, and is constantly in a state of flux. And then there's spiritual energy, which is conscious. It feels, it has experience, and it's steady. It never changes. You can't cut it in half. You can't burn it. You can't destroy it. It's always existed. It always will exist. The yogis are saying we are that spiritual energy. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. We exist eternally. But we're in bodies and we're moving through a world that is made of the material energy, which is non-conscious and constantly shifting. And then we said, so now you have two categories, material, spiritual. If you break down the material, it's composed of three, sattva, rajas, and tamas, three different material energies. We won't get too into that again. And then we said, and now the spiritual energy is being broken down into three categories. And they're called here Hladini, Sandini, and Samvit, right? But when I say these words, I know they're foreign and I haven't brought them up yet, but if we switch to the next slide. we'll see that these correspond to what we have been speaking about, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, eternality, awareness or consciousness, and bliss. That these are the nature of the spiritual energy. So I wrote up here the inner spiritual energy of God. God has this external energy. That's the prakriti, composed of the three, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Everything is a blend of these three. And so similarly, in terms of God's spiritual energy, that can also be divided into three. The inner spiritual energy of God has three aspects: the power of existence, which is Sat, eternality; the power of awareness, consciousness, Chit; and the power of bliss, which is Ananda. And let's just very briefly go through this. Sat, or the Sandini, is the power by which spiritual reality exists. It is the energy that sustains the eternal world, the soul, in all spiritual relationships. Right? It's the power on which the spiritual realm. We were saying that this realm, in a sense, is a reflection of a truer reality. This Sandini energy is the energy that sustains that spiritual realm and all that is spiritual. Then Chit, Samvit, is the energy of spiritual awareness or knowledge. It is what allows the soul to know God and to understand reality. These are deep philosophical concepts, but we're just trying to present it in the simplest of ways. And the one that we're going to concentrate on is the third, Ananda, or the Hladini energy, the Hladini Shakti. Hladini is the energy of divine love and bliss, right? Hla means like to delight or to give pleasure. Hladini means it's the energy that gives pleasure. It is the power through which God experiences joy and through which souls experience loving relationship with him, right? This is the power that facilitates bliss, Ananda. And that Ananda is seen in the form of divine love in its truest and richest sense. Here we have a painting, right? This is a painting that is essentially, Sandini, it means this entire realm which this is happening in. The trees, the sky, the river, the throne that they're sitting on, the bodies of these divine beings are made or supported or facilitated through the Sandini energy, right? That Sat, that eternality, that existence. And Chit, it is through the Samvit energy that these gopis, that they know Krishna, that they understand him, that they relate to him. And the Hladini Shakti is the pleasure-given potency. It's actually the potency of love. It's through that energy which facilitates the love that's shared between them and Krishna, going back and forth. What's being said in this previous verse, if we can go back? O Lord, you are the support of everything, including all of the spiritual energy. The three attributes, Hladini, Sandini, and Samvit, exist in you as one spiritual energy. This is love as an ontological reality. It's not saying that love is something that doesn't exist, and to get to reality, you'll find there's no love. It's empty of love. This is saying love is foundational. Love is ontologically real. Love is really what existence is all about. If you're missing out on that, you're not understanding what it's all about. So again, O Lord, you are the support of everything. The three attributes of Hladini, Sandini, and Samvit exist in you as one spiritual energy. But the material modes which cause happiness, misery, and the mixtures of the two do not exist in you, for you have no material qualities. In other words, we're calling the material energy, the prakriti, his separated external energy. That's what Sadhguru was talking about. This fear, courage, love, hate on the material level. That's what he's talking about, but he doesn't understand that there's something beyond that. That's the reflection of the truth. Imagine there's a reflection on the water, and then the water disappears. Once the water disappears, the reflection disappears. He's seeing love, the reflection of love. And he's saying when you get to reality, then there's nothing left, right? I'll just go a little deeper into this. I hope I'm not going too fast or going over people's heads. I want to go back for a moment. And I want to go back to when we were discussing this Bhagavad Gita's analogy of the reflection of the banyan tree. Remember that when we were discussing that? And the idea was that this banyan tree, it had its roots going up. It was saying this world that we're living in, this material world that we're living in, it uses a metaphor that says this world is a banyan tree that's upside down. The roots are going up, the branches are going down. It describes it's the material realm, it's a reflection. And the sages have said that this reflection, it's resting on a surface. Just like a reflection of a tree is upside down and it rests on the surface of the water. What is the surface on which this reflected world exists? If there's a real spiritual realm and it's being reflected, and this world is the reflection, what does that reflection rest on? Desire. It's very interesting, right? It's desire. If our desires to pursue happiness separately from the divine didn't exist, then the material world wouldn't exist. Just like if the water dried up, the reflection of the tree would be gone. Does that make sense? Right? So what Sadhguru is speaking about here is he's talking the love that's the reflection of the true love, right? And he's saying that he's not seeing the original tree. So he's seeing that on the surface of desire is courage and fear, love and hate. And if desire wasn't there, they would all be gone. But what he doesn't understand, and what the Vishnu Purana is telling us, is that this is all the reflection. So yes, if desire is gone, there'd be no material love, no reflected hate. But that doesn't mean that the original substance isn't still there. And so the Vishnu Purana is saying that love does have its ontological reality. Love is something real. And I think if we're really honest with ourselves and introspective and really observe around us, we'll see this reality. We'll know it deep inside. This is what we write all our songs about. This is what we have all our movies about, right? This is what interests us. This is what we live for. We may have everything material in this world and not have love and feel completely empty. We may have very little of this material world and have love and feel very satisfied. And it's this real love, not the reflected love, not the love that's based on anything external, but the love that's based on spirit, that the Vishnu Purana is telling us is ontologically real. And Bhakti Yoga is the yoga to uncover that, right? All of yoga is about discovering the true self underneath the mind. And what Bhakti Yoga is saying is that the mind, when it's conquered, when it's controlled, when it's finally no longer operating as a faculty taking us away from truth, then we experience the self, and we can experience the self in its deepest and most powerful way through the bliss of the Ladini Shakti, this pleasure-given potency, this delight, which is ultimately divine love. Bhakti Yoga is meant to uncover that ontological reality, which is the nature of every one of us. Does that make sense? Interesting? Okay, really important stuff that we don't confuse the so-called love of this world. In other words, if we look at the love of this world, we can see it's fickle, right? It comes, it goes. It's often based on the most superficial things. Recently, a person asked me, like sometimes we look at a little baby, and we feel this love, right? How can we keep that love going? And I said, that little baby is going to grow up. It's going to be 20 years old, 30 years old, 50 years old. It's not going to be so cute anymore, right? Yeah. And it's not going to be so quote unquote innocent. Right now that baby's not, hasn't said anything bad about you or done anything to you to disturb you, maybe cry, something like that. But it's not, it hasn't its desires have not conflicted with your desires yet and created the tension, right? So all you're seeing is the cuteness. And I once read an article in the New York Times that analyzed what is cuteness. And it kind of broke it down. Like when the features of the face, because the way that we grow, some things grow more than others. Like when you have a baby's face, the eyes are larger in comparison with the rest of the face. Then when you grow up, your face grows more than your eyes, and so but when you're young, the eyes are really big, and it describes the different how the body of youth, of infancy, in all the different species, it kind of has this cuteness built into it, and it analyzed it as a natural thing that kind of keeps the parents attached to the children and protecting them, and concerned about them. And then as we grow up, we're able to kind of take care of ourselves more, and we don't need as much cuteness necessarily to survive. But why was I talking about cuteness? Huh?
Why do we love children?
I'm sorry?
Love on a superficial level.
Oh yeah, yes, thank you. So it's these superficial things. What is real love? It's not that I just love you because you're in this cute little package right now, right? And as soon as that package changes, then the love is gone. It's not I love you because you're satisfying my senses right now, but as soon as your ability to do that disappears, I don't love you anymore. A lot of times when people fall in love, this is like common theme, right? Someone's like, oh, I've fallen in love. It's so wonderful. I've been waiting for this moment, and here it is. And then someone says, well, what is it about this person? And then they say, they're different than anyone I've ever met in my life. Right? And so that means that they've fallen in love on the material level. They fall in love with that which changes. What the yogis understand is that the true love is to love what's the same in everybody. Right? That underneath these changing bodies, I might be in a baby body one moment, and then that body's going to change. It's going to become an adult body. But do I love you either way? Do I love this? It's the spirit that's within inside that body that never changes, and that is the same within everyone. Right? I'm made of that spiritual energy. You're made of that spiritual energy. Every living being is made of that spiritual energy. When you begin to love spirit, well, then you will naturally love everyone. You understand? That's spiritual love, right? And everyone is emanating from that one divine source, which is God. It's kind of like if you love the sunshine, you have to love God. And it's not that you love the sunshine as the sun hits India, or you love the sunshine as the sun hits Rome, or you love the sunshine. It's the same. It may be a different ray of the sun, but it's the same energy. It's got the same light. It's got the same heat. And so you can love the sun's rays everywhere. And you could, and if you love the rays of the sun, you love the sun. Or let's put it this way: if you love the sun, you love all of its rays. And when you love God, you love every living being. Because what's the qualities of the sun? Heat and light. What are the qualities of God? It's this Hladini, Sandini, and Samvit, or Sat, Chit, Ananda, eternality, knowledge, and bliss. Because we emanate from God, we all have that same energy. And when we love God, we'll love everyone underneath the temporary changing costumes that we're in. We'll know the self, and we'll know the self in everyone. Is that clear? So what we're talking about here is ontological truth, not love that is based on superficial externals, but love of the real self and love of the real divine. That's what bhakti is meant to uncover. It's not a sentimental thing. I mean, certainly it involves sentiment, right? But it's not like merely a superficial sentimental thing. It's about getting down to real yoga, getting down to the real ontological reality, right? Taking our awareness from complete absorption in the surface level stuff, my body, my constantly changing material emotions, and getting down to the real self, which also has real emotions on the spiritual level that are significant and not superficial. That's bhakti yoga. It's real stuff. it's sometimes you pick up a book on yoga written by like a modern author. I don't mean to harp on any buddy or criticize, but a lot of times they're commenting on things that very powerful philosophers, very seriously well studied, well practiced philosophers have been writing text on centuries ago, and they're approaching it as if they can understand it from their uneducated, unexperienced platform. And they say things like, well, bhakti yoga is for people that are like sentimental, and jnana yoga is for people that are like more intelligent. And it's not like that, right? It's not like that. It's a path for every living being, right? And it's a path that has a history of the most powerful philosophical literature that you can imagine in Bhakti Yoga. Questions about that? How are we doing? Yes, Amy.
So you just said,
Is the mic on? Slide that thing up on the mic. No, not the switch on the. The mic's not working? It's okay. I can repeat the question.
But you said anyway for the recording.
Okay.
thank you.
Oh, there we go.
So you just said that being attracted to, you were
Baby?
talking, yeah, being attracted to the baby and how it changes. And I'm trying to, so what if your previous love was never successful in life, and then you're attracted to what you think is now different from what you had in the past because those were unsuccessful?
Okay. It's, the question remains a bit vague. And I feel like I'm being drawn into the world of relationship counseling
No.
or love advisor. but which is it kind of happens whenever I begin to speak on these subjects. I always get questions like, but in other words, if I understand what you're saying is, okay, it's easy to understand that our past loves were illusory after they fall apart. But does that mean that the love that I have now is illusory? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. And well, here's the thing. If you're a practicing bhakti yogi, then the way that you relate to your loved ones can evolve. It's natural, right? It's the natural tendency that when, say, one has a child, that one feels a particular affection for their own child. If someone doesn't have that, we really have to worry about it, right? That's a cause of concern. That child is very dependent on you, right? It's like the universe has arranged for you to care for this being, and that being is looking up at you, saying, "Care for me," and so it's very natural that an affectionate bond develops with that child. Now, certain paths of yoga, like jnana yoga, might commonly, the way that it's presented, might commonly say, that attachment that you have for that child, analyze it. Analyze it, right? You come across that child for a blink of time, right? If we look at your existence, which is eternal, it's one line going eternally in that direction, into the past, and eternally into the future. And for a split second, you two cross paths. And then you are forever separated again, right? You're identifying, you've imposed an idea that I am mother, right? And as that child grows up, the way that the material energy is moving, an idea will be imposed upon it. I am the child. This relationship is real. The mother is feeling the love that I have for you, I will always have forever, right? And these yogis are saying, no, you won't. It'll be gone. It'll be gone from your memory. It'll be gone forever. Even as you grow older, you may try to reach back and get it, but you won't be able to. It's like a dream, and it'll never come back. And that's the reality. And if you understand that now, and you accept it now, and you let go of the attachment now, then when nature actually pulls it away from you, you won't suffer because you've already let go of the attachment. And the best way to do that is to walk away from it, right? Now, I don't want to be too harsh because normally you do that towards the end of life, right? After the child is grown up, and so you wouldn't just walk away from an infant or something like that. But that is the common practice in Jnana Yoga. You're getting some exposure to these ideas in your married life, and then when your kids are grown up, nowadays we have kids at a later age. Commonly, people are having kids in their 30s and even their 40s. But in traditional Indian life, you'd have those kids when you're like 20. So by the time you're 40, they're grown up. By the time you're 50, they're definitely grown up. And now you don't have your responsibility, your dharma as parent is fulfilled, and you retire. And commonly for the next 10, 15 years, those kids they've taken over the business, right? And they're earning the money. And they're saying, you don't have to work anymore, mom and dad. We're going to take care of the finances. You practice your spiritual life. And now you're living at home and you're reciting Ramayana and doing your puja and chanting your japa. And then 15 or so years later, the husband says, now I walk away. Now, I've loved my family, I love this experience, but we all know that I need to go deep into spiritual life. And I'm going to be able to do that more easily when I'm away from all of these, what they would call illusory connections that I've had all my life. And I realize I'm not this person's parent. I'm not this person's spouse. These are very temporary roles that I was playing. I'm ready to let go of them all and cultivate the real me away from all of this. So Jnana Yoga is going to emphasize you are not the parent. This is not your child. This is not your husband. This is not your wife. That this is just for something that appears to be that way for a blink in time. Let go of the attachment. Bhakti Yoga is a little different. In one sense, everything said there was true. But in Bhakti Yoga, the idea is the love that you have for that child is not that you have to eliminate that. But you do have to ask yourself, why do I love this child and not every other child? Why? It means I'm seeing think of two perspectives. Our perspective and God's perspective. From our perspective, this child is mine. Other children are not mine. From God's perspective, all the children are God's children. Can we move our perspective, expand our perspective to see the world the way God sees it? And if we can, then we realize I should love all the children, right? Not just the children. I should love all the people. I should love all the humans. I should love all the animals. I should love all the plants. Everything that has a spark of spirit in it, wherever the soul is, my love should naturally go there, just as God loves goes there. So bhakti in many ways is kind of like harmonizing our own mind, or we could say our own heart, with the mind or heart of God. And that should manifest in universal love. My love goes everywhere. So in Bhakti Yoga, it's not that we have to snuff out, eliminate, cut off the love that we feel for our loved ones, but we have to expand that love so that we can actually feel. And let's be clear, the feelings that you have for your child may be different than the feelings you have for any other living being. That's also okay. But the point is that the feeling of love for every living being has to manifest in oneself. All right. All right? Did I get to your question? Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions or thoughts before we go on? All right. Is this all sounded crazy, or is this like making sense? I'm not hearing everybody saying it's making sense. You don't have to. If you're saying this is sounding crazy, you could raise your hand. This is crazy. Anybody? Okay. Yes, it's crazy. Would you? Do you have any questions about it that we can help? Because if you feel it's crazy, probably other people feel it's crazy too. Let's send the microphone back. Oh, back there. Okay.
Because of your gentle presentation, taking into consideration all of the feelings and all of the ontological truths and stuff like that, it sits so nicely. It's so sweet. It's crazy. It's unbelievable. It's from a different dimension.
The truth is
But
crazy.
you're luring us in. You've got us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you have a question, my friend?
No, I don't know if you ask me.
Yeah.
No, just it's crazy because in German we have the word verrückt,
Verrückt.
verrückt, and perhaps Selin can translate it. But verrückt means it's you change your the way you look at something.
Change your
It's
perspective?
just, you turn it, and
Yes.
for me it's like this.
Okay.
You
Yes.
know?
It is, but so in other words, it's a different perspective.
Yeah, really the opposite.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a different perspective, and so it's crazy for me.
In a good way?
Yeah,
Sometimes I say, a lot of people, and it seems like it's increasing. Like there was an era in the 60s and the 70s where people got into psychedelics, and some of them got into them to try to expand their awareness. And some of them that got into spirituality, that it was connected with some spiritual pursuits. And I think in recent years that's come back with more natural psychedelics. I don't even know, honestly, I don't even know if psychedelics is the right term to use anymore. And people commonly ask me about that and how do I feel about that. I don't want to get into a big conversation. Every time I bring this up, I give my perspective, and there's always resistance to it amongst some practitioners. But I did psychedelics when I was a teenager. And I did find that what they gave me was like dramatic perspective change, right? One moment I was thinking, I am the tiniest little speck in an unlimited world. I'm like, it's incalculable how tiny I am. And the next minute I'm thinking, I am everything. Like, like nothing exists but me, and so you're going to, but it is kind of like most of us are just moving through the world just like in a very narrow perspective, never kind of like stretching it and trying to understand. So psychedelics can do that. I get that. But what I found is, well, I can speak about the negative aspects of psychedelics. I won't really get into that now. But what I'll say is this: reading these texts can give you these perception changes as well. It can help you understand I'm very tiny, or it can help you understand I am eternal. It can help you it can help stretch your mind and stretch your imagination, and then contemplate things and say, actually, although I would have thought this is crazy, it's actually quite rational. And if I'm going to be truly objective, I really have no basis to say that this cannot be real. And so that's part of why I really like these ancient texts, is because they can give us different perspectives. And some of them are really, excuse me, some of them are really quite fascinating. And then you have the opportunity to practice them. Okay, it's a theory. Let me see what it would be like if I lived my life according to that theory. What if I tried to see every living being not based on their externals, but as if they were a spark of spirit within? What if I tried to move through this world thinking that God is made out of eternality, knowledge, and bliss, and that bliss is manifest through love. And because I'm a spark of God's energy, that means that love is my nature as well, and the nature of every living being. What if I tried to live according to that theory, right? What if I tried to see every living being as a brother or sister, right? What if I respected every living being? What if I said I must practice nonviolence towards every living being to be consistent with that? What if I made awakening love, what if I assumed, if I accepted that love was my nature, and that I made it the goal of my life for that nature to arise fully in me so that I was deeply experiencing it every moment. What if I tried that experiment? Right? It's a theory. Let me experiment with that theory and see where it goes. But essentially that's what Bhakti Yoga is. Right? Bhakti Yoga is saying love is an ontological reality. Love is my nature. I'm not fully in touch with it. My mind is what's interfering with it. Let me do practices to control the mind called yoga, which will allow me to transcend the effects of the material mind and allow my true nature to arise fully in my awareness. What if I tried that? What if I made that the goal of my life? And that's essentially what Bhakti Yoga is. Yes, let's get the microphone over there.
I think I have to prepare.
No, but it's also there on the recording.
Thank you. When I think most of us hear the idea energy, and you think of something like I'm going to connect with it, like I plug my charger into the wall and to get energy. Mm-hmm. I don't think of that as a relationship. Like the idea of Ladini as the energy of love. How do we make that personal as a relationship? Like the concept of energy to me in itself seems impersonal. But if these energies are actually personal, right? So most of us, I think, we think nuclear energy, we think all these different forms of energy or fields and quantum fields. But how does that, if love is not is personality, an individual, I fall in love with a person, right?
Yes.
But the idea that this person is made of energy and I fall in love with that energy, that seems counterintuitive.
I have exactly 1 minute to answer this very deep question. But let me just very briefly say, what's being said is that the divine, the source of all energy, is a person. And the nature of that person, part of the nature of that person is this ability to experience and share delight through love. And that's the Ladini Shakti. That category of eternal ontological reality, that God is made of, is called Ladini. And because we're also made of that same energy, it's our nature as well. But it's something that is relational by nature. It's something that exists only eternally in relation to others. And that's why this is very different than Advaita Vedanta. Sadhguru is giving a more Advaitic kind of perspective, saying that once you get down to the self, there's no question of love. Love involves duality. Here they're saying there's an eternal duality. It's a oneness and a duality. The oneness is we're all made of that same energy, and the duality allows us to actually experience love with one another. And so that's achintya bheda, oneness and difference. That's the eternal ontological reality. I'm going to have to stop there. Well, we're going to be digging in more into bhakti in the coming days. We didn't begin to discuss its practice and how it plays out. We'll begin that tomorrow, but I just want to kind of get into this foundation. All right. Thank you all so very much. If you'd like to hear previous classes or future ones and get connected with that, Gabriella will be outside the door. She will be happy to help you. Please stick around for the Kirtan, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much. Hari Om Tat Sat.